colleges, what were your top 3 options, I guess?
I would say like at the very end, I would say my top 3 options were probably just like excluding financials. It was probably just Stanford, Yale, Princeton.
Okay, I still do not know how to introduce these videos, but we got a new person today. Tarun, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So hi, my name is Tarun. I'm from Utah. I just graduated high school. After this summer, I'll be attending Stanford studying biomedical computation. And yeah, I guess I'm just here to talk a little bit about me and what I did throughout high school.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a different video because I personally do not know Tarun from like school or anything, but he reached out to me and his
Yeah,
experience
I'm
seemed
just a
pretty cool.
fan, just a super fan.
Yeah, and also like he's done a lot of different stuff that I personally none of my friends who I know like really did the kind of stuff that you did. So hopefully this will be fun and you have like a completely different like point of view to bring to the table. So it should be
Yeah,
fun. Okay.
definitely.
So I guess to start it off, like give us a basic overview of like what kind of stuff you do, your like extracurriculars, your stats, your like interests, that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah, and you can feel free to ask me like any specific questions if I don't touch on anything. But I would say like throughout high school, what I was mostly involved in was a combination of a few different like science research experiences, mainly focused in like public health epidemiology. So like that area of like of research, as well as like um, volunteering like organizations that were mainly STEM focused, like STEM education, for like the youth across my state or nationally. And I would say like it was a combination of those kinds of things that that made up like my extracurricular activities. But yeah, I'd be happy to like touch on either of those or go into more specifics.
Yeah, so why don't we just start with your research? Because I think that was the main thing that I was really interested in because not many of my friends do research or
Yeah,
like
right.
participating in like science fairs and that kind of thing. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, sure. So I've been involved in kind of like formal research since I was a freshman. So like summer before my freshman year, I well, I like grown up doing competition math and like throughout middle school and stuff like that, like math counts and all of that. And so when I went into high school, I wanted to like kind of find a way to apply like the problem solving, like those kinds of skills into like trying to solve like a real world problem. And so from there, I just reached out to like local professors at the University of Utah, that were working like in the math department that were working like modeling or like any kind of applied math field, and asked if I could just work as like an intern or like gain some research experience. And so I worked with the math biology group for the last 4 years. That's one of my main research experience, I would say, here at my local university. And what my projects have focused on, or my main project, which I entered into a lot of competitions and different kinds of things, was based on modeling dengue fever, so early detection of dengue fever outbreaks, using mathematical modeling. So it's kind of it's like a popular kind of thing that we do in infectious disease modeling. It's even more popular now because of COVID, like mathematical modeling for infectious diseases. But that's what I've worked on for applying it to dengue fever the last few years. And yeah, I mean, if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy. But other than that, when I started progressing through that kind of research, which I started discovering more about like epidemiology and public health as a whole, and how research was advancing those fields. And so from there, I started getting involved in more epidemiology research opportunities. So I worked with like another local institute, it's like the Cancer Institute that's in my state, modeling like ethnic disparities in the association between BMI and breast cancer and stuff like that, which is like kind of the other side of public health, which isn't as mathematical but has more implications. And so that was mainly what I did. So with those projects, I would present at different conferences, different competitions that were around, whether it be like the traditional high school ones or just more like professional ones.
So what competitions did you do and like how did you do at them? Like did you do like ISEP and that kind of thing or
Yeah. So like throughout like with my dengue fever research, which I described, like I had entered that in like since I was a freshman, I had been like entering continuations of that projects that I've been doing throughout high school. So I went to ISEF in my sophomore year, and I won like a special award there. And then I would say like my junior year is where like I got to like a really good point with my dengue research, and I discovered kind of a few more competitions. So like I entered ISEF again, but obviously that was canceled. Um, and then like I don't know if you're familiar with like the Junior Science and Humanities Symposium. It's at like JSHS, and like that was cool. But that I went like had won my like local one, which is like the Intermountain region, and then like went on to the nationals, and I managed to get an award at nationals. So Yeah, but from there, I would say like those are like the two major competitions that I entered. There were other various ones that probably aren't as well known, but I mean, like if this is geared towards people who are looking to enter, I would say like these are readily available if you just do your independent research on like different competitions that exist for high schoolers and how you can enter. Mainly, what it was either just like in the case of ISEF, it was just presenting like a poster at your state level and then doing well. But like in the case of like JSHS, it was like writing a whole manuscript and then sending it in as an application, and then they'll select you. And so it kind of differs, but that's how I found out about those, just from doing my own research and talking to others. But and then I guess into moving into my senior year, the only competition I did this year, just because of like college apps, was like STS. Um, and with or Science Talent Search, it was just abbreviated STS. And so with that, I managed to get into the top 300, so like scholar. But yeah, that's what happened with STS. It was a lot different from like entering in a science fair. But yeah, I mean, those are the main competitions that I did.
Dang, very nice. Well, I think my main question is like, how did you get into science fair stuff? Because I
Right,
personally did research in freshman year. I thought that would be a cool thing to do, but
right,
I did pay like 10K for that one program, and it didn't happen that much. But I think you took a very different route. So how did you really get into research, basically?
right. That's a good question. And so like as I mentioned before, I grew up doing competition math, and like so like that motivation that I talked about, which was wanting to apply like that problem solving kind of math skills into research, motivated me to like reach out to the professor originally when I was in my freshman year. And then from there, like as I started doing research with him, I luckily like I have an older sibling, and I feel like that helps a lot. Like when your older sibling has gone through high school already, and like she's also interested in research, and so like she had participated in science fairs, and then like so I knew about science fairs like going into high school, which I was lucky to have. So I knew that like going into the research when I first started, that my goal was to present like a solid project at these science fairs. But then like over time I realized like there was so much more to gain from research than just presenting in fairs. And so I like started like just on my own reaching out to more professors with like saying I have this experience in epidemiology, like I have these interests, I'd like to expand in this specific way. And then they'd be like, yeah, I'd be happy to work with you. If and in the case that they weren't, I mean, you just keep trying, I guess. That's how you find like research opportunities, um, if you're really wanting to. So
Dang, what was your acceptance rate for
I
professors?
mean, I mean, at the start, like when you first start looking for like profs and stuff like that, it's very difficult, especially when you have no experience and when you're young. And understandably, like a lot of like PIs don't like to take in high school students just because like a lot of their time and like funds are supposed to be focused on grad students primarily. But I feel like if eventually you'll find like a professor or two that's actually willing to take someone in that has like a clear defined interest in what they want to do, and also like a just like I don't know, I hate using this word like passion, but like they actually have a passion for what the group is working on, what their research group is working on. From there, like it was just like eventually over time, I guess I would say the acceptance rate got a bit greater just because like I kept building up experience. But at the start, like I mean, I would say like never be discouraged if like you email like someone that you really wanted to work with and they just don't even reply, because that happens like a lot more than you would think. Or they'll just say, sorry, can't take you, you're in high school. But I mean, like, don't give up. There's got to be a professor that would want to work with you.
Wait, so your
Mm.
dengue fever research was a separate from like the professor research, right? Or did you like?
No, I mean, well, basically how that worked was, I went into his research group when I was a freshman, and he had like a few grad students that were working on a couple like projects, because math biology group, they work on like a ton of different stuff like ecology, like evolutionary biology and stuff like that. And so like basically what happened was I was just allowed to like read through a few of their papers and then say, okay, I'm kind of interested in this, which was modeling infectious diseases. And then like I had a few sessions with like one of the grad students about like the introduction to the specific type of model that we use there. And so from there, they were just like, okay, you can feel free to develop your own project now. And we can like check in with you, make sure you're going the right direction. So I would say throughout my freshman year, like it was a lot of that like training. And then like I got to choose my own project and then work on it, with their guidance. And then like as I moved to like sophomore and junior, I was more comfortable working on it by myself. And so that that was kind of how it worked. But of course, there were research experiences also where I've been closely mentored by someone when it's like new, and it's when it's like more like beyond like the high school science fair thing, like where you're actually trying to publish in like conferences and stuff like that.
So like after freshman year, did you like reach out to other professors for other?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I see,
After
I see.
freshman year, I would say that's when I mentioned I started getting that like wider interest in public health, and epidemiology. And so I started reaching out to a few other professors that I'd like read papers of, in Utah specifically, and just said, I'd like to get more like formal experience in this field of epidemiology. And then they were willing to work with me. And so, but those projects that I did elsewhere were not like entered in any like high school competitions, more just like submitting to conferences and stuff like that where I was able to present. So
Okay, so I guess just generally, what like other than reach out to as many professors as you can, what other advice would you give to somebody who is
yeah, I
interested?
would say definitely like you need to do something that you're genuinely interested in. Like a lot of times it can seem like you just want to get a research position, and I've heard like a lot of people like asking just for like advice about like how do I get into research. Like you go into, if you just research labs very broadly and say like, oh, okay, this one I've known like a high school student that's worked in this lab, and though I'm not interested and I know like I might have a chance here to like get into this lab just because they take high school students, that's really not going to work out like successfully in your favor, just because like your work won't be like optimal and you won't actually have fun doing it. But I feel like if over time, and luckily for me, like I knew that I wanted to do something with math, like applied math, just because I had that interest already. But I mean, like you could take time, I would say take time independently to really learn what you're interested in. And that can be through like taking AP classes in high school, and you like find some specific chapter of AP bio that interests you, or AP Chem, and like finding a professor that is working in something like more focused into that chapter, and reaching out to them and explaining like your circumstances. But beyond just like reaching out to them, there is um, really no way to like get into like the professional research field as a high schooler, other than like if you have like super strong connections somehow, like if your parents are researchers or something like that, or like your parents are doctors, and then it's like it facilitates the process of getting into a lab, I would say. But I mean, a lot of it is just based on reaching out, and then from there it'll just build on itself.
Yeah, nice, nice. Yeah, I honestly had no idea how to do any of this stuff, so that helped
Yeah,
me out a
no,
ton.
me,
But
yeah,
yeah, yeah, thank you for that. So I guess I think we've exhausted most of the stuff about your science
yeah,
fair stuff. But what other stuff do you do? I guess is the question.
yeah, sure. So like, yeah, like I said, more of my extracurriculars were really focused on like educational organizations. So like for example, like I would say like my biggest activity relating to that is I run an organization right now called Mission Math Utah, and I'll just plug it real quick. So Mission Math, like what we do is we host like camps and competitions throughout the year for elementary, middle school students. Usually it's more geared towards competition math topics, just so students who are interested in math in school can get like that kind of exposure, just to gain awareness for competitions and like that kind of style of math. But like recently, we've also been expanding into just reaching different communities across Utah and bringing them math opportunities as well. And so that requires like a ton of like planning for the bigger events we hold. And so that's taken up quite a bit of my time, outside of research, I would say. And then other than that, I just like volunteer at local STEM organizations and run like the student advisory board, or help run the student advisory board for my science fair, and other things like that are pretty much like pretty all related to STEM, except like there's like a few activities like still focused on like youth mentorship and stuff like that I do that aren't as STEM focused, more just youth mentorship in its purest form. And so that I would say that's kind of, those are my main interests, are like mentoring youth in some way, and also like combined with the research.
So would you say that research is like your main focus and like that's what you spend most of your time doing, or would you say it's something else?
I would say it really depends on the time, honestly.
Okay, okay,
It
yeah,
depends on the time, because, and the reason I say that is because like when I was a sophomore and junior, when it came around to like March, April, May, when like science fair and all those other competitions are, I was really like hooked onto my projects and like perfecting everything. And like even before that time for a little. But like throughout the summer, I would say like there's some summers at least, like I had more time to do like work on my organizations and stuff like that, or just like find more interest relating that were outside of research, um, that helped me spend more time on those. So I would say, yeah, like I said, it would depend on the time of the year. Um, but yeah, there were definitely some months where I was very focused on research, overwhelmingly more than my other extracurriculars.
okay, very nice. So I guess next thing is any productivity tips, because you've done quite a lot in high school. So is there anything tricks you have, obviously, for how to like
Productivity.
get
Actually,
things
I
done?
should I should probably be asking you for this, but I don't know. I mean, for productivity, I would say a lot of times for me, and I kind of struggled with productivity in high school, like actual high school classes. I would say because sometimes I felt like if I wasn't doing something I was actually interested in, I would just find myself like going on YouTube, like watching your videos or something, especially senior year. But no, for real, like I when I came to something that I was actually interested in, like going into my research or like coding and stuff like that stuff was like actually fun to me. So I had no problem, like usually no problem like being productive because I was so immersed in it. But when it came to time like where I had to finish something for school, and balance that with my extracurriculars as well, as especially when I felt that pressure, I would say like productivity came when I like kind of eliminated all the opportunities that I had to like go on external like sites or whatever, that would distract me from whatever I was doing. And so like a lot of times like I feel like this like having my laptop out is pretty distracting. So like whenever I have like paperwork, I'll try to put all of that stuff away. Um, but I mean, other than that, like I feel like a lot of I'm like not known, I would say by my family at least for not for being very productive, but like I always end up getting stuff done. I would say like by the deadline because I like always I would say I always follow deadlines pretty strictly in one way or another. So I would say keep that in mind. Like have like a set calendar that you like have to get stuff done by and be sure to stick with that.
Okay, very nice. So
Yeah.
another thing, I guess, is what did you do for fun? I mean, I know you said that like coding and stuff is fun, but like outside of academic stuff, I guess.
No, yeah. So actually, like I guess for fun, outside of school, I play several different like racket sports. So for my school has tennis and racquetball teams, like varsity sports. And so I play on those. And like during like the winter and spring, and those take up quite a bit of time, like outside of school as well. But I also play pickleball and ping pong competitively. Like those aren't with school though. Um, and so yeah, I would say like I've always like kind of had an interest in racket sports. And it started with tennis because I played like pretty competitively from a young age, and so like traveling and stuff like that. But then when I got into high school, like I kind of lost that time that I had to like spend as much on tennis and um like playing like different tournaments around the US. And so then I kind of got into other racket sports, just like splitting my time for fun. And so I discovered racquetball, and then from there just went more and more. And I would say that like is what I do a lot for like fun, just like when I'm hanging out with friends or whatever, we'll just like play one of those.
Okay, okay, that is very cool. I guess next is general tips for high schoolers. I don't know. Do you have any like other things like maybe in terms of choosing classes, like what extracurriculars to do, what extracurriculars
Yeah.
not to do? I don't know anything like
Yeah,
that.
see, I mean, like it's a bit difficult for me, to like give like like and for as for anybody like give like an exact like like exact tips of what to do throughout high school because I feel like you really like find yourself along the way, and what exactly it is you should be doing and what you should drop. And I wouldn't like recommend that just everyone do science research obviously because a lot of people just like don't want to or like aren't fit for it and it's not their real interest. But I would say if you're someone who feels like they're geared towards STEM, getting at least like one research experience in throughout high school can be really valuable, just because you get an exposure for something you may very well be doing a lot of in the future, just for like graduate degrees or whatever, just throughout your undergrad years. Getting research experience is very helpful, or yeah, and I would say like for you, you're really interested in like olympiads and competitions and stuff. I think that's awesome, and I think like if you have those like available and like you are interested in learning like those different fields of science and applying them to competitions, like by all means go do that. It's like something that will not only like obviously like cool, it's great for your resume and everything when you're applying to college, but it's also like something where you can gain a lot of like general knowledge and just have fun doing it, like preparing with friends and stuff like that. But like in a more general sense, throughout high school, I kind of just chose classes that like I would say it was a healthy mix of me choosing classes that I was genuinely interested in and me choosing like just being like frank choosing classes that I knew I had to do just because like they were there, like 8 different AP classes. Like obviously I'm not as interested in like a push, but I did a push just because I like it was there and like was offered. um and I feel like in some cases, like I'm not gonna lie, you just have to do that, because like uh unless like you really feel like you don't want to or it doesn't fit in your schedule, then fine. But like I felt like I had to do that, and I don't really regret it, even though I did struggle a lot in the class. I feel like that made me more like hardworking because I knew I had to like study a lot because I wasn't like great at history. And also this like kind of gave me a challenge that like a new challenge that I know I'll be facing throughout my college when I have to take those classes again. And so those were the reasons that I took those classes in the first place. And the reason I feel like everyone else should put themselves out of their comfort zone when choosing those classes. But I mean, high school, I feel like it, now that I actually graduated yesterday. So like I've like been thinking about this for a while, but there's like so many different, I know so many different people that go to my school because, or like, when I say different, I mean like in terms of what they're interested in, because my school is like, it's like a liberal arts school. So like there's not many people in the first place that are interested in STEM. So I get the chance to meet a lot of people that are interested in other stuff as well. And so like I would say like what made them happy was doing the stuff they were really interested in. And while they weren't as interested in STEM, they still took the opportunity to take those classes, those advanced classes, just to put themselves out there. And I noticed that's what made people like more hard, like I was saying, more hardworking and more, I would say, successful in high school, if that's what you're looking for. And I guess like I'm more out of the academic sense. Having a friend group that has like similar like interests, not just interests, but like values on a more foundational sense, so you can be really helpful when going through high school is what I've noticed. Because like for example, like I've had the same group of friends since I was like in 8th grade, and we went through high school together. And while not all of them were like super into research or whatever, like all of us like had the same kind of both like academic and personal values when going through school. And that really helped me stay motivated and do whatever I needed to do. Because like having a group of friends that's like happy for you when you achieve something, and also a group of friends that's like sad for you when you don't. I mean, that's something that can be really valuable and make you want to keep working at something. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of loaded, but I mean, that's
Yeah,
my
I agree with all of that stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
I would give the same tips. So, I mean, you said you did not regret taking A push,
Yeah.
but are there any other things you regretted in high school?
I mean, it's difficult because like I feel like if you asked me this a couple of months ago when I was still going through senior year, I would have told you a ton of regrets. But now that like I can say that I'm done, which was like yesterday, I feel like a lot of the things I thought were regrets when I was going through them were actually just like there was a reason to each of them. Now that I can see that now. Like if you asked me when I was going through A push and like doing the exams, like while trying to do college applications, I would have told you, oh, I shouldn't have done this. Like there's no way I like should have like taken this class. And like same with like AP Lit, because I like put that on my schedule too this year. But like now that I've finished them and like kind of looking back on the classes, I feel like if I'm ever put in that kind of situation in when I'm an undergrad, satisfying whatever like gen eds there are outside of my major, I feel like balancing that with all the other stuff I want to be involved in when I'm an undergrad is a skill that I really do need to have to do well, perform well in my undergraduate years. And so I would say like in an academic like class choosing class sense, I would say I don't have any regrets at this point because I'm happy with all the classes that I took. Actually, let's rephrase that. I'm happy with everything that I took except AP Euro. No, but no, even that, like I would say that there's a reason that I took that, though I'm still trying to find it. I mean, but outside of the choosing class sense, I like all the things that I did throughout high school, all like the extracurriculars. I guess like on the extracurricular side, there is something to be said about overloading your extracurriculars. Because like especially when you're applying to college, I'll take it from this angle first. When you're applying to college, um, people who are like reviewing your application will see like right away if you loaded on a bunch of like just random extracurriculars just for like the hell of it, honestly. And so, I mean, like that, not only does it like not impress like anyone who's reviewing your application, but it really does nothing for you because once you like devote yourself to just a ton of like random stuff that you really are not interested in, you don't really gain anything from it. And I would say like your extracurriculars should like create some sort of like story about you because like they should be stuff that you're genuinely interested in. And there's nothing wrong with going and finding like more and more opportunities if it's something that you're actually interested in. But also you have to know that there's like this time where there has to come a balance between your extracurriculars and your schoolwork and just like mental health and sleep and stuff like that. And so like I would say overloading is definitely something that I had experience with. I would say towards the more start of high school when I was just trying to get involved in things. And it's something that maybe I regret now, but I'm happy that I learned from that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that just because they do something, it helps them out.
Yeah,
But like,
yeah,
the idea is like only if you actually gain something from it, it actually helps you, right? Like if you
yeah.
just do
No,
it
I agree.
because you could write, oh, I did this, then it doesn't actually do anything.
Exactly, exactly.
So I guess now that we're coming to the end of this, we could talk about college apps. So I guess
No, great.
how did you do in college apps? If you're comfortable with sharing,
No, yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
and then I guess after that, like, what are you in like planning on doing in college?
Definitely. In terms of college apps, like what specifically would you want to know? I'm pretty open, like sharing anything. So
Yeah, like basically, if you have any like things that well, I guess first you could talk about like what you highlighted in your app. I guess is the first thing, and then
Mhm.
like after that you could talk about like which colleges you got into or that kind of thing.
Right. So did you ask like what major I applied to? I didn't hear that first part.
Yeah. Well, I guess like it's kind of the same thing. Yeah, just like I guess which major you apply to is relevant. So yeah, you could talk about that too.
Right. So I mean, like, when I was like applying to college, and like a lot of the colleges that I applied to, actually all the colleges I applied to, they didn't like have like direct admission into major, except maybe UCLA does that. I'm not sure. Like where it was just like admission into like this like general college of like science. So I don't think like the major I chose like played a huge role, but it was um really just like statistics, data science, like when it didn't have like something more specific. Like for example, Stanford had like a major that I was really interested in, which was biomedical computation, because it was like kind of like in line with what I'd been working on throughout research in high school. But like elsewhere, when it didn't have that, it was more like applied math, statistics, and stuff like that. And so yeah, that's what I applied for. And then I would say like I applied to I think 20 schools total. Yeah, so it was just like places that had decent like statistics, or like or just especially like professors that I would want to work with, but also a combination of like I plan on doing pre-med, so like just different schools that had stronger pre-med tracks and like pre-med programs. Um, and I think in the end, I got into I think uh 15, 16 or something like that, out of the ones I applied to. Um, and so yeah, I mean, I ended up choosing Stanford. I was lucky enough to have like great options at the end. And I if you want to know what those are, I'm happy to share them. But I had those options in the end, and I guess when it came down to choosing between Stanford and other schools that I had gotten into, it was more just the major, especially, really drew me to Stanford, that I was just talking about, and also the location. I just feel like that's kind of unbeatable. I really liked the campus when I went to visit, and so it was just a combination of those kinds of things that pushed me to choose Stanford. And so yeah, when I'm there, I want to study biomedical computation, but I know that could change. Just like everybody who like whatever they put in their application is probably going to change throughout their undergraduate years. But I know that I like would want to kind of pursue more like research in that computational biology field, like combining those two, like computational techniques and modeling biological phenomena, and somehow apply that to like a more like medically focused field as like a pre-med student. So like applying, I would say like this could definitely change, but like as of now, I'd like to um pursue like an MD PhD program, just because I feel like that's always been my dream, just to like have that experience of practicing combined with research. And the research would be focused on like the like bioinformatics or something like that that can be applied to medicine with a computational side to it. So yeah, I mean that's what I plan on doing. So
So I guess for your colleges, what were your top three options? I guess.
I would say like at the very end, I would say my top three options were probably just like excluding financials. It was probably just Stanford, Yale, Princeton, because like those, I guess those were the schools that I got into, and options that I really wanted to go to for different reasons. But I would say like I have always lived on the West Coast, and so like when comparing those between like West Coast, East Coast, that played a big role in it. And though they're all amazing schools, and I'd be like genuinely like extremely happy to go to any. But yeah, I mean like I guess those are my top three options toward the end.
And I think the last question is, which part of your high school experience do you think like helped you the most in college apps? Like, which one do you think you highlighted the most, or which one do you think helped you the most?
That's a good question. Um, you mean I mean I really don't think that it was one. And the reason I know that's like probably a pretty cheesy answer, but the reason I say that is because like if I painted myself out to be just someone who did research, then I don't think I would have been as successful as I did. And if I painted someone who just did like volunteering in those organizations, then I don't think I would have been as successful. But I feel like when it was a combination of like my research and my STEM related like organizations and volunteering and stuff like that, it really like worked together to create like a story that could describe me in a great way. As someone who like was not only interested in research but was also interested in like bettering like my community through like STEM and stuff like that. And I feel like it was a combination of those that really helped me. If I was to choose like the ones that are most important to me, like I would say like they're all important to me, but the ones I spent the most time on were probably my dengue fever research. That was probably one of the top. Um, and it was like I would say it was like the first activity on my Common App, I guess, because like I ranked those kind of like in time and importance. But and also like my work with mission math was really I spent a lot of time on that, and I would say like I wrote a couple of essays about that as well, and like my work with that. So I would say yeah, those were kind of like my most important ones. I would say.
All right, well, that is all we got. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for reaching out. It was actually a very interesting talk. I did not know
No,
a
of
lot,
course. I
so
really do like your channel. Yeah. Your
yeah.
channel's awesome. I feel like there's like it's pretty unique. I haven't like seen anything like that, especially from someone in high school. Usually it's just like for coding, it's just those guys who do like competitions and like share their screen and do like insane stuff that I don't
Yeah.
understand. But it's really awesome what you're doing.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you for coming, and we will see you guys next time. I hope you guys enjoyed. All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.